Picture this, it's 1933 and the world is in the throes of the Great Depression. Amidst the chaos, a woman steps into the White House, and in the process, she changes the game forever. No, it's not a Marvel superhero, it's Eleanor Roosevelt. In a world that often deemed women as the weaker sex and had their life path already laid out by societal expectations, she shattered the stereotype and redefined what it meant to be a true badass. But who was this phenomenal lady? And why does she continue to inspire us nearly a century later? Grab your popcorn because today we are diving into the extraordinary life of Eleanor Roosevelt. The First Lady that flipped the script. Born on October 11, 1884 in New York City, Anna Eleanor Roosevelt was a woman destined to defy convention. You see, our girl Eleanor was not your typical blue-blooded aristocrat. She lost both her parents and her brother by age 10, making her a poster child for resilience. But this early trauma didn't break her spirit. In fact, it only fueled her fire. Fast forward to 1905, and Eleanor marries her fifth cousin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Yeah, you heard that right, her fifth cousin. This was obviously before online dating opened up the world to a larger dating pool. Eleanor didn't merely marry into politics, she embraced it with gusto. In 1911, Franklin won a seat in the New York Senate and the family moved to Albany. This is where Eleanor was initiated into the glamorous life as a political wife. Cue the fancy parties and formal events, which Eleanor found, let's say, less than thrilling. But when World War I broke out in 1917, Eleanor found her calling. She volunteered with the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society and visited wounded soldiers. And you know what? She loved it. When Franklin lost the Democratic ticket in 1920, Eleanor decided to get involved in politics herself and joined the Women's Trade Union League and even became an active member of the New York State Democratic Party. In 1921, Franklin was diagnosed with polio, and this left him paralyzed from the waist down. Eleanor didn't stop encouraging him to get back into politics, however, and in 1928, he was elected governor of New York. During this time, Eleanor joined the Legislative Affairs Committee of the League of Women Voters. She studied the congressional record and learned how to evaluate voting records and debates. She became a political genius. With FDR's ascension to the presidency in 1932, we saw Eleanor step into her groundbreaking role as First Lady, and boy did she shake things up. Eleanor went on to redefine what it meant to be a First Lady. She didn't just host fancy tea parties and look pretty, she was a force to be reckoned with. You have heard of the notorious economic downturn known as the Great Depression. Well, during that gloomy period, the Roosevelts took over the reins of the White House. Faced with the daunting task of reviving the nation's economy, they unleashed a barrage of bold and groundbreaking measures under the banner of the New Deal. These initiatives were aimed at breathing life back into the dormant financial system and giving a much-needed boost to the sagging morale of the American people. Mrs. Roosevelt was a vocal advocate for civil rights, labor rights, and women's rights, and she didn't hesitate to use her platform to promote these causes. In fact, she was so committed to her mission that she held her own press conferences, wrote books, penned a newspaper column, and even hosted her own radio show. Eleanor was a woman of many firsts. She was the First Lady to travel the country extensively, visiting coal mines, factories, and military bases. Of course, some haters made jokes about her traveling around the country and reporting back to her husband, but she didn't let that stop her. She was also a trailblazer for women in journalism. She started holding press conferences specifically for female reporters, and even made wire services hire women to cover her events. She went where no First Lady had gone before, breaking barriers and winning hearts along the way. When the Daughters of the American Revolution refused to let Marian Anderson, a world-renowned African-American opera singer, perform at Constitution Hall, Eleanor said hell no and resigned from the organization. Just over a month later, the federal government, of which Eleanor's husband was the commander-in-chief, organized a massive concert at the Lincoln Memorial and invited Marion to perform. A staggering 75,000 people came to hear her sing. Eleanor was a champion for civil rights long before it was cool. When Eleanor attended a public meeting in Alabama where seating was segregated by race, she straight up demanded a folding chair and plopped it down in the middle between the measured space that divided black from white. She was a true badass. But wait, there's more. Eleanor also served as a delegate to the United Nations General Assembly, where she played a major role in drafting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. No biggie, just championing human rights on a global stage. Eleanor's impact on society didn't end with her tenure as First Lady. After FDR's death, she continued to be a force for change, working tirelessly for the causes she believed in. She continued to play an active part in the Democratic Party, and when JFK appointed her as chairman of his Commission on the Status of Women, she didn't hesitate to take on the challenge. So, the next time you find yourself doubting your potential, just remember Eleanor's words. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. Channel your inner Eleanor and let her legacy inspire you to break barriers, fight for what is right, and change the world.